Prime News every weekday evening at 8 Eastern on CNN.
This is CNN, a service of Turner Broadcasting System.
Congressional leaders meet with President Reagan as he prepares to address them and the nation tonight, his State of the Union address.
This is Day Watch on CNN for Tuesday, January 28th. With Reed Collins in Washington, Marianne Laughlin and Bob Kane in Atlanta, and Lynn Brown in New York.
Good morning. The unseasonably cold weather in Dixie is affecting even the launch of the Space Shuttle Challenger. Its 7-member crew now has been on board since early this morning, waiting for liftoff, delayed for more than an hour and a half by technical and then weather-related problems. However, NASA officials say they have determined that icicles on the launch pad do not present any real problem, and they'll attempt to get the shuttle off the ground a little more than half an hour from now. When it finally does lift off, Challenger's mission includes the deployment of a shuttle communications satellite, and the first teacher astronaut, Krista McAuliffe, will give lessons from space, perhaps refrigeration lessons. President Reagan's putting the last-minute touches to his State of the Union address to be delivered to Congress and the nation tonight. It's going to be slightly different this year, shorter, more general, with the president expected to discuss the nation and the role of government and its relationship to it. But putting together that speech has kept the White House staff at odds for days, and CNN's Frank Sesno reports from the White House.
It's that time of year again, time for the president to report to the nation and to Congress on where we've been and where we're heading.
This will be my 5th State of the Union address. It's almost getting to be old hat.
But there's a new feather in this old hat. State of the Union 1986 will not focus on legislative prerogatives. It will be shorter, about 20 minutes, and it will be what aides describe as visionary and thematic. In other words, it will be short on substance. The president has been practicing for over a week in appearances before private sector groups.
We've got to get government in shape for the 21st century. And one of the ways that we plan to do that is by getting government out of activities it can no longer afford or shouldn't have been doing in the first place.
Cutting government spending will be the president's drumbeat, and he plans as accompaniment a chorus of encouraging economic statistics. But on other issues, the president's advisors engaged in a full-scale tug of words as they attempted to craft his speech. The original draft tackled such issues as abortion and the Soviet threat, too controversial and confrontational for Chief of Staff Donald Regan, who ordered one of his aides to rewrite the speech, taking out the offending passages. Blender but better, Regan thought, yet an official described that second draft as deadly dull. Hardline conservatives in the White House, led by Communications Director Pat Buchanan, were incensed, and after a direct appeal to Regan, got another crack at the speech. They put the ideology back in, but toned it down. White House insiders say the flap over the drafting of the State of the Union was very acrimonious before a compromise version was finally hammered out. In the end, the protectors of the Reagan rhetoric appear satisfied. Says one, the president is not going to dodge anything. Frank Sesno, CNN, the White House.
And CNN will carry the State of the Union address live beginning at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, that's 6 p.m. Pacific. The Senate's Veteran Affairs Committee is holding hearings at this hour on the issue of POWs and MIAs in Indochina. Chairman of the committee, Frank Murkowski, recently led a congressional delegation on a trip into Vietnam and Laos. He says both governments are ready to do all they can to return American bodies and to resolve this question, whether there are servicemen still alive.
On the issue of live sightings, the delegation was told, and I might add rather emphatically, that neither Vietnam nor Laos governments are holding American servicemen against their will. We were advised that it is entirely possible that Americans are in Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia illegally and or of their own volition, but that no one was under their control.
Later today, the committee will hear testimony from people who claim to have seen missing servicemen alive in Indochina in the last year.
The New England Patriots are facing a more formidable opponent than the Chicago Bears. A drug scandal is rocking the Patriot organization. Hours after his team was thrashed by the Bears in Sunday's Super Bowl, Pats coach Raymond Berry admitted there is serious cocaine abuse among team members. Berry says up to 12 players are involved. None has been identified, but the Boston Globe says they include 4 starters. To combat the problem, the team's players' union has voted to accept voluntary drug testing administered by Patriot officials. 7 Pats opposed the plan, and there were several abstentions, but the Globe reports the majority approved. That makes the team the first in the league. The NFL's Players Association has long opposed spot drug testing or any type of urinalysis except in problems with individual players. Geraldine Ferraro has offered to step in temporarily if Queensborough President Donald Maness resigns. Maness is expected to leave his post after being accused of taking bribes to sell city contracts. Ferraro says she wants to provide stability for the shaken Queens Democratic Party. The former vice presidential candidate also added she would accept the job without pay if city officials vote her in. A New York City official called her candidacy premature, but says she will be considered for the job.
L. Ron Hubbard, the founder of the Church of Scientology, is reported dead. Scientology officials say he died of a stroke Friday night. CNN's Dan Hackle looks at the controversial author and philosopher.
Scientology officials said the 74-year-old Hubbard died of a stroke last Friday at his ranch in California. An announcement was made by the current president of the Church of Scientology International, Heber Jench.
As he indicated that he discarded the body, and he wanted the ashes to be spread at sea. This was in keeping with his particular wish and his will, and so that was carried out.
Church officials said Hubbard had not controlled the organization and its corporations for the past few years. In 1982, Hubbard's son, Ronald DeWolf, filed suit claiming Hubbard was either dead or mentally incompetent. After a letter from Hubbard saying he was in seclusion by choice, a judge in 1983 ruled Hubbard alive. There were other legal tangles with local and federal authorities over the years, ranging from tax exemption questions to burglary charges. Throughout it all, however, Hubbard remained in seclusion. At its peak, church officials claimed 6 million members, but defectors said no more than 2 million people had joined the organization. Dan Hackle, CNN.
The Air Force has charged one of its enlisted men with espionage. Bruce Ott, arrested last week in Davis, California, the site of Beale Air Force Base. A spokesman says Ott, who is 25, is suspected of leaking defense information. The Air Force won't say what the information was or who got it. Ott was a clerk in the orderly room of the 1st Strategic Reconnaissance Squadron. A congressional investigator accuses the Pentagon of rigging tests to win funding for the Bradley fighting vehicle. Each Bradley costs $1.5 million, and Congress has already approved ordering nearly 3,000 of them. But a staff member of the House Armed Services Committee says that decision should be reconsidered because the Bradley was not tested under realistic battlefield conditions. His report will be released later today. It also contains criticism of other multi-billion-dollar weapon systems.
A Miami maintenance company is poised for an FAA inspection today. Aerothrust Corporation was cited last week for improperly overhauling 27 Pratt & Whitney JT-8D jet engines. Those engines are used in many commercial airliners. The FAA says no accidents or injuries are blamed on the maintenance snafus, but it ordered immediate repairs of the engines and inspections of 77 others. Aerothrust notified the FAA early this month after a subcontractor admitted he failed to look for and repair engine cracks. A faulty JT-8D engine was blamed for the fatal crash in Manchester, England last August. Canadian investigators have concluded a bomb blast sent an Air India jet plummeting into the Atlantic last June, killing all 329 people aboard. A government report says there is evidence the bomb exploded in the forward cargo compartment. That report traces the blast to a suitcase checked onto the flight by a man with a Sikh name. The man did not board the plane. The Indian government and the Boeing company said yesterday they believed a bomb caused the crash, but they disagreed on where the bomb was placed.
California Congresswoman Bobby Fiedler made a court appearance yesterday on charges that she had tried to pay a political rival to drop out of a race. She won a postponement of her arraignment on those charges. CNN's Jim Thomas reports.
Congresswoman Fiedler was back in court Monday to be arraigned on charges that she allegedly offered political opponent Ed Davis $100,000 to drop out of a Republican primary race. But Fiedler's attorneys were successful in obtaining a postponement for the second time because they say they have not yet reviewed the text of secretly recorded conversations that took place at Fiedler's home. In an article published in the Los Angeles Times, a Times source claims that Ed Davis' campaign manager, Martha Zilm, was wired for sound when she visited with Fiedler and the Congresswoman's top aide, Paul Clark, January 12th. It was the conversation on that tape that reportedly convinced the grand jury to indict Fiedler and Clark on state election code violation.
I know what I said, and I know that I did not say what they're claiming.
Fiedler's attorneys say they may also seek to have the indictment thrown out because one of the jury members was biased against Fiedler. Jury member Dr. Richard Ferraro had served with Fiedler in the past on the Los Angeles School Board, and the two had often been at odds.
Well, I'm looking forward to a thorough examination of exactly what his involvement was in terms of the grand jury. I was very shocked to find out that he was on it because obviously we worked together for a very long time. It would be extremely difficult for him to give any kind of an objective opinion.
Fiedler also accused Los Angeles District Attorney Ira Reiner of using her indictment as a smokescreen to draw attention away from what she says was his bungling of the McMartin preschool child molestation case.
This was a way of diverting attention from what he had done in the McMartin case and served as an extremely convenient vehicle for him.
Fiedler's top aide, Paul Clark, also named in the indictment, continues to insist the situation is having a minimal effect on Fiedler's campaign for the nomination to oppose Alan Cranston for his California Senate seat. Jim Thomas, CNN, Los Angeles.
Next this morning, as Day Watch continues, Nick Gregory will join us with the latest coast-to-coast weather forecast.
We will also be telling you how Florida citrus farmers fared during what was, for Florida, a very cold night.
Years old, and his company was just purchased for $10 million. 34, and she was just made vice president of a well-known bank. 45, and sailing the Pacific for a year. You may wonder how these people do it, but they're just like you and me, sharing the same desire for success. And while there's no one formula for success, there is one magazine that contains information leading you there. Information for the one-man operation to the multi-million-dollar corporation, which in this case happens to be run by this 43-year-old. Fortune cuts through the clutter of news with articles helping you improve your portfolio, your career, your lifestyle, your future. And whether you're working your way to the top or you're already there, Fortune keeps you ahead with special issues like the Investor's Guide, which challenges the sharpest minds of Wall Street to develop the best portfolio for you from an imaginary $100,000. That's information you can profit from, especially if you make your own investment decisions. And it's yours free if you subscribe to Fortune. Also free is this Fortune Desk Director. Solid, sleek, totally functional, with clock, calculator, and memo pad, which happens to be used by this 47-year-old who runs one of America's most successful medical companies. Call now, 1-800-528-5000, and get 18 issues of Fortune at a 53% savings off the cover price, payable in 3 installments of just $9.77 each. That's what this 28-year-old international financier would call a great business deal. Also with your paid subscription is this free Fortune Desk Director, the Investor's Guide, the Fortune 500 reports, plus something even highly successful people can't turn away from, a 53% savings. So call 1-800-528-5000.
What's that number?
1-800-528-5000.
Now back to Day Watch on CNN.
Citrus growers in Florida report some damage from the unusually cold weather in the state today, but they say it's nothing like the killer freezes of 83 and 85, from which many growers still have not recovered. This year, growers harvested what they could before temperatures plunged, and they did what they could to protect the rest. Smudge pots and kerosene heaters are burning in groves to keep the trees from freezing, and some growers have flooded their groves to raise the ground temperatures.
Fruit growers in California have the government's permission to test bacteria developed to protect strawberries from frost. but they haven't been able to get started on the program yet because of opposition from people. More from CNN's Greg Lefebvre.
Will a frost-inhibiting bacteria invented in a test tube be the salvation of frost-plagued farmers, or will it be a runaway killer uncontrollable by man or nature? And what effects would it have on humans? Hundreds of residents and growers in Monterey County, California, packed a special meeting to hear from the critics of a proposed test of the microbe and from the microbe's inventors, Advanced Genetic Sciences.
Their purpose appears to be stopping genetic engineering. We're the first to have passed the approval process, which makes us their first target.
Glenn Church is concerned. He grows Christmas trees near the area of the proposed test.
I just don't know if we're really ready for this. We've gone all the years of human history without having to introduce an organism like this. Why does it have to be this year?
The company wants to spray the new bacteria on 2,400 strawberries at an undisclosed farm. The Environmental Protection Agency approved the test last year after hearing from an independent panel of scientists who agreed the time was right for open-air testing.
From all the evidence that's been gathered and all that we asked for that was developed by AGS through careful testing in the greenhouse and in the laboratory, the risk to the environment is extremely low.
But the Washington-based Foundation on Economic Trends is challenging the test. They say the bacteria may cause insects which die out in colder times to thrive year-round, and that the frost-inhibiting bacteria could also inhibit rainfall.
We cannot know from the tests that have been done whether or not this experiment is dangerous.
Rogers said he would sue in federal court to stop the testing. The bacteria does occur in nature as a very rare mutant. Said one scientist, if we'd taken the one in nature and grown it, there wouldn't be all this fuss. But simply because we made it in a lab, they're making us jump through all these legal hoops. Greg Lefebvre, CNN, Salinas, California.
We are up to 16 minutes past the hour, and Nick Gregory will not wait a minute longer.
Here he is now, Nick.
That's right, because my time will be cut even shorter. So we're going to be looking at temperatures again to be found across parts of the East Coast today. Bob and Marianne to be found again into the teens and 20s for highs this afternoon. At least it's sunny, but it still is cold. We've got a lot of strong winds blowing in across the Great Lakes area in through the northeast. Wind chill factors still in the 20 below 0 degree range in many spots. We're going to look at some video from Pittsburgh to show you some of the snow that occurred in the area and also some of the strong wind chills. Look at these people trying to get through all of this rough weather conditions that are still in the area. Right now it's 6 degrees in Pittsburgh and the wind chill factor is about 25 below 0. And a lot of this scene will be repeated right on through today until those winds begin to subside by later on this afternoon. And they will subside by this afternoon as the system starts moving away, at least the big low pressure area that is now moving up and towards Newfoundland. It will continue to advance up in that direction. And then we look for some drier weather to start moving in from the west. But we still have a little bit of snow shower activity as this next system is developing out here in parts of the plain states. It's light snow shower activity, and it really won't accumulate too much. But nonetheless, again, it'll still be in this portion of the country, and we still have some even flurries to be found out of this weak little system as it comes across Kentucky, Tennessee, and parts of northern Alabama. Deep south is dry. Lots of sun going all the way back in through Texas and into the southwest, but again, very cold even down in through Florida. We've been keeping you posted on the shuttle weather for the launch, which again, now they're in the T-minus 9 minute and holding pattern. Everything still looks good that they'll be able to get off within the next, I guess, probably the next half hour. So we'll be keeping you posted on it. And right now, the launch site is reporting 37 degrees with lots of sunshine, so they are up above freezing. It's dry through the southwest. Beautiful here again today in the 60s and 70s and some clouds in the northwest. Let's look at the radar summary, and you can see some of the snow up in this part of the nation. The rain back to California, and then it's windy again in Wyoming. Winds have been gusting over 70 miles an hour between Casper and Laramie this morning. Snow into Minnesota, light snow, and then some coming off New England. Later today, our weather map showing us dry weather through the southeast, but still those leftover clouds in northern New England with some flurries or snow showers around, and the same kind of deal across parts of Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa, and Illinois. Dry through the deep south, and then again we look for some rain here to arrive across much of coastal California into Oregon with just a little bit of snow in the higher elevations. Travelers advisories in New York and Pennsylvania, and also around the New York City area and back to Kentucky and in the northern part of South Dakota and up in northern Maine due to some icy roads. Highs today, bitter cold again across the upper part of the Great Lakes in towards the northeast. Single numbers and teens there. 20s though along the mid-Atlantic coast, 30s and 40s into the southeast, but We'll look at what's developing back in here. A little warm-up with 50s and 60s and 70s, and eventually we'll see some of that warmer weather moving back into the southeast, so the cold spell won't be around for too much longer. Thank goodness. 30s and 40s in the northern Rockies to the northwest, 60s and 70s in the southwest. Latest satellite view showing us the Hawaiian Islands in the picture, and you can see a nice day there, just a few afternoon clouds, and we'll close in on the Caribbean and show you same kind of a deal. Here's the forecast. For the folks in Hawaii, 82 today in Honolulu, 79 in Hilo, 84 today in St. Croix. St. John will be about the same. Antigua at 85 today. Sunny, clear and 5 above in Fairbanks, 28 with more clouds than sun in Anchorage, and 33 partly cloudy in Juneau. That is our latest on the weather. More in just about 30 minutes, and I hope to see you then. Lynn?
A day of fun and frolic ended in tragedy yesterday for two Massachusetts boys. 13-year-old Thomas Riley and 10-year-old Joseph Camo were playing hooky beneath a boardwalk when a tidal wave swept them into the ocean. A man jumped into the water, grabbed Riley, but lost hold of Camo.
I had him by the back of the coat, and I was holding him up, but when I held him up, I'd go under. So I'm trying to hold him up, and I'm trying to hold my breath as long as I can.
Riley was taken to a Boston hospital where he remains in critical condition. The search continued for Camo. The 10-year-old was found dead 10 hours later.
It is 20 minutes now past the hour. Small surprise, the number 4610 turned out to be popular with people playing the lottery in Illinois. That was the Super Bowl score Sunday when the Chicago Bears beat the New England Patriots. But so many Bears fans bet the number 4610, the lottery had to double its liability limitation from $5 million to 10. That means instead of cutting off all bets on that combination at the $5 million mark, which is the usual procedure, lottery officials doubled their insurance limit to $10 million, just to accommodate Bears fans.
Certainly were a lot of Bears fans celebrating yesterday and Sunday, and perhaps even today. Michael Cowan's here with some football news for us.
Yeah, the Bears will bask in the limelight for a while over their Super Bowl win, and some former NFL greats will be honored. The NFL Hall of Fame has 5 more. I'll be back in a minute to tell you who they are.
You are so beautiful.
Mercury has shaped a great road car that also happens to be a wagon.
You are so...
Introducing Sable. Mercury, the shape you want to be in.
She's the divine Miss M with the sassiest mouth in show business, and Bette Midler uses it to sound off in this week's People. People celebrates people, like Miss Midler, shocked by her very happy marriage. Then a People special, Jessica Lange, Mia Farrow, Cher, and 20 other Oscar hopefuls. Plus Liz and Stevie Wonder, England's new sensation Sade, Yoko Ono's lost daughter, and much more. Week after week, People celebrates people. This week, get it straight from the mouth of Bette Midler.
Every weekday evening, CNN's Evening News updates you earlier than any other network. Wrap up the day every weekday evening, 10 Eastern. Evening News on CNN.
These days, you don't just need to work hard to get to the top. You have to work hard to stay there. CNN's Moneyline can help.
More evidence of a struggling economy.
Join business editor Lou Dobbs weeknights at 11 Eastern for Moneyline. It's the help you need to stay on top.
Now back to Day Watch on CNN.
Closing in on 24 past the hour, the National Football League's Hall of Fame has grown by 5. Leading the list of new inductees is Green Bay Packer great Paul Hornung. He's joined by pro football's king of scramble, Fran Tarkenton, who set a multitude of records while donning the purple and gold of the Minnesota Vikings. Also on the list, former Detroit Lion running back Doak Williams, Kenny Houston of the Houston Oilers and Washington Redskins fame, and Willie Lanier, who helped lead the Kansas City Chiefs to a Super Bowl win way back in 1970. The new enshrinees bring the Hall of Fame total to 133. They'll be formally inducted into the Hall at Canton, Ohio next August. Now, if football fans in Chicago had their way, they'd put Coach Mike Ditka in the Hall of Fame immediately. Some fans in the Windy City are sporting buttons that say Ditka for mayor, and why not? He's the hero who finally brought a championship home. More on Mr. Ditka and his accomplishments from our Jim Huber.
It was, as it always is, the morning after, the gospel according to the winning coach. What set this press conference apart from most of them after Super Bowls is that Mike Ditka had something to say.
I'm going to cherish this for a few weeks, and I probably won't regret it until I three-putt the first green, and then it'll burn me up again, I tell you.
He jokes about the legendary short fuse. It has grown remarkably longer with the passage of time and the winning of games. He might have blown 3 or 4 years ago if somebody had asked him about repeating next season. Instead,
I'm not worried about that right now. Let's savor this for a while, okay? Bob, let's savor this. Let's not get negative, partner. I know, but you're worried about what's coming. Let's savor the present. Let's worry about it. No, the past we can't control. The future we have a chance to control. Let's live in the present now.
he talked of the quarterback, Jim McMahon, who got the Bears there.
He really doesn't regard his body as anything important in a football game. There's very few people who can play the game at quarterback the way he does. He plays the game hard. I mean, the hit he took from Lippett early in the game when he got turned upside down, the quarterback sneak he made, he got flipped upside down, running the option play, he could have pitched it back to Walter just as easy as not, and he ran it in, and he ran through a linebacker to get it in. There's a lot of courage there.
So this Bears club is judged to be a great one. But just how great?
You don't judge a team on one game or a playoff series or 1 year. You know, I think when people analyze what is great in the NFL, they'll look back at the Packer teams under Coach Lombardi. They'll look at the great Steeler teams under Coach Noel, and I think that that's the mark of a champion, to be able to do it over a period of time.
Yes, Mike, but repeating is the question still. How do you go about coaching something that hasn't been achieved in a decade or so?
You work very hard to get to the top of the mountain, and once you get there and you look down, I think the thing you got to say to yourself, was the price you paid worth the reward you got? And if you say it is, then you can get back.
Jim Huber, CNN Sports.
That's football. Let's talk basketball for a second. College basketball, to be exact. Last night, the Hoyas of Georgetown took the show on the road to Providence, Rhode Island for a Big East feast on Friars. This one was all Georgetown. Red hot night for this guy, David Wingate. 7 for 7 from the field, 20 points in the book. That led everybody. The Hoyas took a lead in the first 2 minutes and never gave it up. Watch the nice fake and a jump shot off the glass by Wingate. 58-39 Georgetown at that point. They post the win, 69-54. And finally, the basketball program at the University of Minnesota will continue as planned, despite the fact that 3 members of the U of M team have been charged with sexual assault stemming from an incident in Madison, Wisconsin last Friday. The 3 were formally charged yesterday. Coach Jim Dutcher resigned on Saturday, saying the program was in need of new leadership. Assistant coach Jimmy Williams has been named to lead the Golden Gophers for the remainder of this season. That'll do it for now. Day Watch continues. Here are Bob and Mary Ann.
And still ahead on Day Watch, the long-awaited launch of the Space Shuttle Challenger. We will have live coverage in the next half hour if it goes up.
It looks like it just might, so stay with us. Also ahead this morning, we'll introduce you to a couple who exchanged vows underwater.
Today, you're reaching out for the best things in life. And Mercury is reaching farther, too. You can see it in the sophisticated shape of the new Mercury Sable and all the Mercury cars. They're shaped to use the wind to help them hold the road, no matter how high you climb. Mercury, the shape you want to be in.
Graham Rudman, will it balance the budget or lead to higher taxes? On the next Take Two, Senators Howard Metzenbaum and Orrin. Hi, I'm Dave Walker. Join me and Lois Hart as we learn how women are coping with alcoholism. And we'll also meet Richard Gere's co-star in Power, Kate Capshaw. Take Two, noon Eastern.
CNN's Prime News lets you experience your world in an hour. Bernard Shaw, Chris Curl, and Don Farmer deliver the world's most comprehensive coverage of all the news, at home and abroad. Experience the difference that 60 minutes of Prime News can make. Weeknights at 8.
Experience live on CNN.
1/2 on this Tuesday morning Day Watch.
Bill Hartley is keeping track of the people in this country who buy and sell everything from stocks to companies, and he's at the financial desk in New York.
Bob, the market's having a good old-fashioned rally this morning. The Dow started up, and it has continued up all day long. Right now, it is knocking at double digits. The Dow Industrial Average up 9.4 points to just a touch over 1,547. Volume, it's going to be a strong day. 56 million shares have traded, and that's about 6 million ahead of this time yesterday. That rally is extending to the broader market. Advancers are about 2 to 1 ahead of declining issues, and that margin is widening. American Stock Exchange has turned around. It had been down. Now it's starting to go up, although not by very much right now, only 9/100ths of a share. Trading still kind of slow. Just under 3 million shares have traded, but advancing issues are ahead of decliners. Over-the-counter market has a nice gain of about 1 1/3 on its index. Volume very strong, 25 million shares, and advancing issues about double decliners on the over-the-counter market. On the New York Commodity Exchange, gold for February delivery is going down. It's now off $1.40 an ounce to just under $353 an ounce. Silver on the March contract has lost 2 cents. It stands at $6.20 an ounce. B.F. Goodrich and Uniroyal have announced, as expected, they are combining their tire businesses to form a new company. It's going to be called Uniroyal Goodrich Tire Company. The venture will be equally owned, with anticipated sales of about $2 billion a year. Analysts say the move makes some good business sense. They note that the new company will be able to spend more on research and development while saving on some overhead costs. What was billed as the largest leverage buyout ever, $6 billion worth, is not yet a done deal. Beatrice Companies today saying it's still evaluating its alternatives. This coming after Colbert Kravis Roberts reduced the amount of cash it would offer for the Chicago-based food and consumer products company. It knocked it down by $3 in cash and raised it $3 in stock. Well, Beatrice isn't saying what alternatives it is considering, only that it would take up the subject of the modified offer at its February 2nd directors meeting. We'll have another full report in just 1 hour from the CNN Business News Desk in New York.
Jordan's King Hussein today rejected several conditions imposed by the Palestine Liberation Organization before it would recognize Israel's right to exist. PLO leader Yasser Arafat demanded that both the United States and Israel accept Palestinian self-determination after a Jordanian-Palestinian state is established on the West Bank and in the Gaza Strip. Now, Arafat's conditions and Hussein's rejection of those conditions has left officials scrambling to salvage the tentative Middle East peace plan worked out earlier this week. The South African Bishop Desmond Tutu's back in Johannesburg now, again calling on the government to enact reforms and do so before the end of March. Tutu's called for worldwide economic sanctions against Pretoria unless it changes its policies on apartheid. Tutu was in the United States for 3 weeks on a fundraising tour. Whether any new reforms may be forthcoming from that Pretoria regime could be seen as soon as tomorrow. That is when the president of South Africa, Peter Botha, has planned a major speech, his first one since meeting with the Reagan administration's point man on that region. And at a news conference today, in a briefing, that man, Assistant Secretary of State Chester Crocker, refused to predict what Botha may announce.
I don't think that it's appropriate for us on the eve of such a statement to sort of indicate what we would hope to see. We obviously hope to see as much as possible. That would give a concrete vision for all of us as to where the reform process may be headed. That would make tangible the commitments to scrapping concrete areas of apartheid law, that would demonstrate a sense of urgency about doing all those things, and that would point towards a climate and whites to talk to each other, which at present they feel so inhibited from doing.
Crocker also welcomed the visit of the UNITA leader, Jonas Savimbi. He's in Washington seeking public and private support for his Angolan rebels.
What the country's space agency has learned in recent weeks, as well as the rest of us, is that this is a difficult general time of year to try and launch a space shuttle.
Patience has been a key element around the NASA operation all this week. We're going to join Tom and Tier now. Once again, just getting down to about 3 minutes, and they think they can do it.
They are counting. The ice is cleared away, and Challenger should be going away very soon. Let's go down to the Kennedy Space Center and take a look at Challenger sitting on the pad as they continue the countdown. They started the auxiliary power units about a minute ago, and that is one of the major milestones to continuing the countdown.
And counting. Gimbal checks now complete.
Okay, let's go for ET-LO2 pressurization.
External tank liquid oxygen pressurization is started, and purging of the shuttle main engines is terminated. T-minus 2 minutes, 44 seconds in counting.
This will be the first time that NASA has been able to launch from their second pad. This will give NASA flexibility in a year where they have 15 launches scheduled. This launch pad has not been used for a decade now. The last was in the Apollo program. During the 6 days in space, the astronauts are going to release a $100 million satellite and another one called Halley Spartan that will study the comet. But the highlight on this mission is the including in the flight of Krista McAuliffe, a 37-year-old high school social studies teacher from Concord, New Hampshire. She was selected from over 11,000 teacher applicants to be the first private citizen to fly into space. She will teach from class, from space, on Friday now. If they are able to get off today, they will have live coverage here on CNN of her giving lessons to students on the ground. They are now within 2 minutes as they make the final preparations. The computers have taken control now.
Coming up on the 92nd point in our countdown. 90 seconds in counting. The 51L mission ready to go. The liquid hydrogen tank now at flight pressure and all 3 engines ready to go. Coming up on the 1 minute point in our countdown. T-minus 1 minute and counting. Sound suppression water system now armed. The hydrogen burn igniters have been armed. These igniters will be fired at T-minus 10 seconds to burn off any residual hydrogen gas. T-minus 45 seconds in counting. The solid rocket booster flight instrumentation recorders have gone into the record mode. Coming up on the